just to give you an insight of the actual tool, I wanted to actually show it in practice. I thought it'd be more useful for you guys to see how it works. And one of the kind of key ways that I wanted to get that across as well was to show the research framework in action. So what I'm going to do here is I have a sample environment set up and walk you through from a perspective of what a teacher would see. But the key thing, I suppose, is getting across the idea of how a teacher can channel their efforts using the tool to actually focus on the common areas the students are falling down on, rather than having to do the very repetitive tasks within Microsoft Teams and Google Classrooms that we hear of often, is of copying and pasting and trying to reuse comments and having to go into one student, copy it again and go into another student. So it's really about reducing that workload, but channeling it in the direction of the common issues students are having. So our approach to that is by setting out learning goals at the point of creating the assignment. So whether it's learning goals or learning intentions, the terminology used within your school, it is about setting out 2 to 3 learning goals for an assignment and channeling your feedback in the area of those particular learning goals. So this will become more apparent now as I walk through the tools. So I'm just going to dive in here and give you an example of what that feedback may look like. So first and foremost, again, coming back to that ease of use for teachers, we've put a very simple starting input method of just using a slider for how correct the answer was and how well the students understood the goal. So you as a teacher will review the students' work as they submit it, and you'll quickly say, okay, I need this group of students are going to get feedback on this particular learning goal. So whether it's 10 or 15 students, we're often hearing that there's common issues students have across the class, but it's still not efficient in terms of providing that feedback to the group of students that may have that issue. So this is where you selected your group of students that need help in that particular learning goal. You can slide it up here, or you can lower it down based on how correct the answer was. Same in terms of their understanding of the goal. So did they grasp the understanding of that question? Were they able to show evidence of solving simultaneous equations or not? That's where you mark those students on that. So very low touch input method. But this is what pulls the recommendation engine on the next stage that you'll see of suggesting the right feedback for that group of students. Another very interesting data point that we collect as part of this is that when a student submit their work, they have to submit their level of confidence. So this is huge in terms of a new kind of point of interest for you as a teacher and for the teachers within your school as principals, is to be able to see and have a record of a student's confidence level in particular topics as weeks and months go on throughout the year. So for example, here for this particular assignment, we can see that 42% of the class actually had low confidence in this area, and you can go through the individual students. Those who are neutral were middle of the road, and only 14% were highly confident in this particular learning goal. So we know now that, okay, this is an area that students were struggling on, and this either needs more attention or needs something a bit more comprehensive in terms of just a type comment. So we're going to walk through to the next stage. And just to touch on this as well, that the importance of that confidence, this also feeds back into the student reflection on the final end. So the way we look at it is trying to close the feedback loop, and that there's a huge amount of work done in creating the assignments for the students at the moment by teachers. The students are then submitting their work, and then the work can be going into providing that feedback. But we don't know at the moment, is that feedback being taken on board? There's no student reflection that is reinforcing that the work the teachers have done is being taken on board by the students. So it's about closing that loop where in a class, traditionally, we could look at them and do you get the nods or do you see the glazed look on their faces? It's very hard to replicate that digitally. And we're looking to bring that student reflection into the process. So to really give new insights that teachers wouldn't have without it. So thinking again to my quite straightforward inputs with the sliders, what our recommendation engine, so the research framework that's working in the background here, is suggesting the comments that are most relevant to that particular group. So this takes into the sliders that you've used for how correct the answer was, how the students understood the goal, but it also incorporates the confidence level of the class, of the group of students you've taken into as well. So you can see here, this will suggest how do the students do, how was their process, what are the next steps. These would be suggested based on what you've input on the previous page. Now, the thing is, as a teacher, nobody knows the class better than the teacher themselves. So this is the scaffolding that allows them to provide the most effective feedback, but we're not telling them what to do. So for example, the teacher can add a comment here. So I'm just going to add my comments to this particular recommendation here. The teachers can choose from a different drop down on the template. So if they find that there's actually, do you know what, this one is more fitting for my class than the one that was suggested, the teachers have the power here to make the choice themselves. We're just trying to really streamline the process so that the level of feedback on the outside is of a higher quality, but the work required to put in the first place is much, much lower. And then longer term, what really excites us about where this goes is that every time, what we're doing is we're anonymizing the data we're collecting from both the teacher and a student perspective, but we're getting huge insights across the board for teachers across the country in terms of what are the key words, what are the phrases that are having a positive influence on student engagement and student confidence. So over time, all of the maths teachers who have an ordinary level third year maths class will be able to get prompts for, guess what, for this particular level of class, these keywords, these phrases are the ones that have the most positive influence on student engagement and student confidence. And it's those levels of insights where we're grasping everything all the good work that teachers are putting in, and then channeling it back to teachers so that you can benefit from the community that we're creating here of users within the platform. So that's something we're really excited about. So just to come back to this, very simple input methods, the teachers choose the ones that they see most suit them. And now I'm going to talk about kind of what does that look like from a practical perspective. So give me an example of what it looks like in a class setting. So what I'll talk through is, imagine we have a class of 30 students and the teacher has set out 3 particular maths questions that they want to go through. Maybe 15 students fell down on question 2, but only 5 students fell down on question 1. But actually there is a large cohort of students who fell down on question 3. So the teacher is now able to go through and work on a solution based on the question 1 or question 2, rather than having to tell each student with the typing out comments and all the workload that goes with trying to type mathematical equations. They are now able to record themselves or provide a solution that they've already prepared and direct it. It's almost like prescribing the feedback to those students that need the particular support that you're looking for. So just as an example, I'm going to show you where a teacher has actually included a recording of themselves working through a solution. So I'll just very quickly here get this up to show when you channel your efforts for a teacher that in the case of a class of 30, you could record a solution to one of those questions, whether it's using a device or using other methods to do so, to get across the students that fell down in that particular question and show them so they can see, they can hear the teacher walking them through the solution rather than just the type comment at the end on a per student basis. So that's just very quickly to get across where this tool can go in the terms of adding that level of feedback, that level of output from a teacher's perspective, but all the while coming back to saving their time. So that's what it looks like from a class perspective, channeling through the learning goals and providing them feedback in that manner. I'm going to jump back in now to walk through, because one of the key things we always see is that, okay, we've put a lot of time, invested a lot of time and effort and training from teachers' perspective into using Microsoft Teams and Google Classrooms. So I'd be very nervous as a principal of putting this in front of my teachers if I thought that they're going to have to change what they're already doing or try and relearn a new tool. And this is absolutely a common challenge that we see. So we are from the very outset, we're integrating directly with Microsoft Teams and Google Classrooms. So this is not about replacing what you already have in place. It's about streamlining those workflows so that the teachers can now do something that's more efficient than what they currently do within those tools. So what you see here now is a common setup you might recognize in Microsoft Teams. I'll walk through another example for Google Classrooms in a moment. But what we'll do is we'll have a feedback tab here that lives within the Microsoft Teams environment. So you'll see now that some of the kind of the layout that you would have recognized within the demo I just did will actually live within the Microsoft Teams environment. The teacher will never have to leave the platform. The students will never even know that the jumpAgrade platform exists. They'll simply receive a more streamlined and a higher level of feedback that the teacher is able to do without ever having to set up a new account. So that's kind of showing, again, within the Microsoft Teams setting, the same functionality that I would have just demoed is within that tool. And your output now is that, again, this is familiar to some teachers and those using the Microsoft Teams system. It's almost indicative of what Microsoft and Google can kind of the amount of weight that they put towards feedback in terms of its importance is that it has this tiny little box in the corner at the end of your assignment. What we're doing is we're pulling in all of our tool and the output that gives, and you're distributing it out to every single one of the students with the click of a button. So you've now prepared your class of 25 to 30 students as a teacher. You've done the feedback in terms of the 2 or 3 learning goals that you want to provide feedback on. And every student in the class, based on what you've selected them for, will get their bespoke feedback added with the comments that you have on a personal level if you want to do so, and then providing them the feedback for that particular areas that they fell down on. So this is really about looking to build on what's already been done, but streamlining it to go that step further in terms of how can we raise the quality of the feedback while really reducing that workload and the repetitive tasks the teachers are running into and causing them to work these astronomical hours and the things that are just going to cause that burnout if we continue further down the line. Again, we'll look a quick look within the Google Classroom setting. So creating an assignment here. Again, it will redirect once the teacher has received the submission. It will redirect into the feedback tool, as you would have recognized within this quadratic equation. So I'll even go back one here. You can see that the quadratic equations assignment is automatically pulled in. The quadratic equations within Google Classrooms. And again, that feedback being provided to the students on an individual basis across the class automatically through the integration. So it's all about streamlining those existing workflows rather than replacing them.